didn't take this picture. I'm up front. This is a Herb Soder picture. He took it with my camera and he blurred it. Boy. Anyway, this was the dedication service just before we left. Then we had to have our usual bon voyage party. Somebody made a computer printout of have a great trip. I don't know who did it, but it was nice of them to do it. Usually I get a picture of the bon voyage cake. This was the bon voyage cake after it was eaten by everybody except me. Every family needs to have a final dinner. Judy said I could have left this picture out. Some of you went home. We live too far away, so there's John. Very happy that we're eating at Wendy's. The early birds, waiting for the group to arrive. And there we are. Sue wisely, after so many years of traveling with us, doesn't pass out the important papers to the kids or to anybody else until we are all ready to go. And that way, nobody loses anything. You can see the passport holders the kids have around their necks. That was to stay with them all the time so that they could keep all of their passport material, their money, everything together in one place. We marked all the suitcases with pink yarn so we knew whose suitcases was what when they came off the airplane. And we paused for the group photo. Jamie is obviously looking for a handout of some sort in that shot. Then down to Albany. Fortunately for us, U.S. Air had just inaugurated an Albany to Pittsburgh to Frankfurt flight. So it saved that travel down to New York that we normally have. You see the cool dudes over here with the sunglasses on top of their heads. That's you. That's right. And there's John helping to pack our suitcases and make them just a little bit tighter with, I don't know what, I think the CB units. Then it's the usual wait for the airplane, saying your goodbyes, and away you go. This was a small airplane, obviously, that went from Albany to Pittsburgh. It's wiped out. Everybody should be met at an airport by somebody. These are two former senior highs from our youth group down on Long Island. Cliff, the fellow with the mustache, went on our very first international trip that we took down to Mexico, which is going to be about 22 years ago. Now there's the maturity of the chaperones. These are the people into whose hands you entrusted your children. Doug was handling the tickets, checking in. Again, we tried to keep the tickets centralized so that they would not get lost. And we boarded our evening flight over the ocean. The beauty parlor was open. The do not disturb or please wake me for meals, and she wore them both. Good-looking crew. Good-looking crew. The flight gets long. And we did have dinner of some sort. I don't remember what it was, but it wasn't too bad, actually. Had the Blues Sisters dancing to the music. The people behind them who were not in our group were not as appreciative as we were. When you get ready to land, they give you hot towels so that you can freshen your body, which is kind of a joke. But we tried anyway. Arriving in Frankfurt Airport, everybody stands around the conveyor, of course, waiting for the luggage to come off. And Doug is protecting the baggage down here so nobody walks off with it.
That's Mike.
Mike, was that Mike? Oh, all right. Again, we moved the baggage, and then we would put everybody around the bags so that, again, nobody would steal it. And we would give each child a responsibility that they had to carry out. Watch the bags. And there's Stephanie watching the bags. Perfection. Jen Clark had a brand new luggage carrier which didn't work. They've tried to fix it and ended up throwing it away. The ladies here are figuring out money. I'm not sure what Marcia's doing, but you know that money is safe anyway. At the Frankfurt airport, they, of course, with the American military there, they have lots and lots of traffic, and we had to go from here all the way down to the other end of the airport just to get our vans. And Doug managed to corral a bunch of these very scarce luggage racks, which he has now secured with his very body. We used Doug's American Express card, and it really does work. It saved the church $1,000 on insurance to buy the vans. We used budget. And then we drove up to the front of the airport and loaded up quickly because the security people were not all that friendly about us blocking traffic, etc. And headed out toward Berlin. This is another 9 hours away, quite a distance. We stopped at the local Hojo's, which was very, very expensive. This is Howard Johnson West German style. The kids got their first taste of German food: Coca-Cola, spaghetti, chicken. The reason we were ordering that is because those were the kinds of things that I could understand on the menu. And we're getting close now to East Germany. Down there was our very first glimpse of the fence that separated East from West for the last, 40 years? We arrived at the checkpoint there. A man was sitting inside there with his feet up on the desk, just motioning people, come on through, come on through. So they didn't check anything, no passports, no nothing. If you have doubt about the East German economy, you're rightly to have it. This is one of their cars. They're little two-cycle engines. They burn oil, and this one is being towed back to East Germany. It obviously broke down in West Germany. Very poor. It's the Ekman van. Always the happy van, of course. We switched. We had the children trade off so that they all were not riding in the same van all the time. We made a wrong turn in Berlin, and we were following the minister's directions explicitly. We should have arrived about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, which would have given us lots of light. But it turned out we suddenly looked up and saw the wall on the left-hand side of the car, not on the right-hand side of the car, which meant that we were in East Berlin and not in West Berlin. A few months earlier, that could have been a major problem, but happily that wasn't a problem, and the 3 vans, we snaked our way through West Berlin, all of Berlin, and managed to find the church. This is Gerhard Werhinger, who runs the Lutheran church there in a suburb of West Berlin. We had many homes for people to stay in for most of the group, and these are a couple of German families here being assigned people to take home with them. Some of the people did not have a home assignment, so they stayed at the church and were lucky enough to go to the McDonald's. Always a welcome sight for children. The next morning we wrote postcards. Those of you who received postcards, and everybody in the church should have, this is how it's done. Forced labor. You will write postcards now. And they also wrote their diary. Then Gerhard gave us an introduction to the politics of Berlin. This church was the first building to be used by Americans to worship in during the occupation after World War II. It was one of the few left standing. Very nice facility. The Holocaust is on everybody's mind. This burning bush was a tribute to those who had died in the Holocaust. Then Gerhard went with us to a very quiet neighborhood, and this was the home of what's called the final solution. This is where the Nazis plotted the extermination of an entire race of people. And it's just, it's in a quiet suburb on a secluded street, and there's the house where that evil was hatched, the concentration camps and everything. As you can see, it's just the house is to our left, and this is just a very, it could have been a suburb anywhere. We then went to Potsdam. Potsdam is essentially, it's another town, but it's almost a suburb of Berlin, and went to the wall and climbed the guard tower. And there, look how he changed when he climbed that guard tower, yes. Started out a man and ended up. We got, I think, all of the kids on top of the tower at one time or another. Looking from the glass, there's a lot of water in Berlin. I had not realized the number of lakes and rivers that are there. But this was all East German territory. Down right in the foreground there, that sand and green area, that's where part of the wall used to be. There was another section of it across the lake on the other side. And straight ahead, over in the trees, is the house where the Potsdam Conference was held, which was Stalin, Truman, and Churchill when they divided up Eastern and Western Europe. Looking down from the tower onto a light pole, Judy reminded me that when the East Germans shut down the wall and knocked it down, they were able to close one whole power plant, which was necessary to light the wall for security purposes, for East German security purposes. The interior of this is where the Potsdam Conference was held. This is one of the working rooms. Quite a grand chalet type building. This was Stalin's desk, where obviously the Red Room. Oh. And there's where the table where the great powers met. The tourists are getting a little tired now. Jamie's getting a little strung out. And the kids aren't all that excited either. Marcia looks kind of tired. We went tried to get lunch. And Imbiss is that's kind of their quick food place, but we didn't eat there. We decided to go to a real restaurant with the kids and eat some real East German food. From there we went out to the infamous wall. We had thought that all of it had been torn down, but obviously a lot of it hadn't. This is like I say, right near Potsdam. And the kids are throwing rocks at the wall and chipping away at it. They brought back probably, I don't know how many 100 pounds of rock. The territory that we're standing in is really no man's land, or I suppose no person's land, you have to say today. There's Matt throwing a huge boulder. You can see that boulder hitting the center section of the wall. And now that began to crumble, as you can see there from the stuff flaking off. And then the center section fell out, and the top section, we were careful with your children. We told them to stay away. The top section then comes crashing down. So it looks like that when you're done. Then the next group comes in and breaks the next section. The fingers of the children. And there they are. Little climbing. The church wanted us to meet with their confirmation class, and we did. We met with all three of them, various groups. Two groups were meeting with the confirmation class, while another group was back destroying the wall. The children only one of them or two of them spoke any English, and actually they weren't all that polite. They were typical kids. So it kind of bombed out as an experience, but at least we tried. We took the children for pizza in Berlin. Our hosts assured us, two girls went with us, they assured us it was just a quick hop, skip, and a jump to where we were going to eat, and we had to drive all the way into town and all the way back out, which again is no mean feat when you're trying to keep three vans together and not get them all lost. West Berlin was very expensive. That's what they ate. I think, did they each get a half a pizza, or did they each get a whole one? I don't remember. You each got a pizza? We were more extravagant than I thought.
We did. No, we didn't.
We were fortunate enough, we stayed with Gerhard and his wife, and this is a typical breakfast. See, you wondered why we were late each morning. It was because we were having breakfast, delayed breakfast. And in the evening, they would have a little libation, and we would sit around and chew the fat for a while. Turned out that Gerhard has been down to, I didn't realize this till I talked to a friend of mine who's the chaplain at Union College. Gerhard has been to Union College and talked to the people down there. There's Jamie with his new friend, Jamie and Ross with their new friend. Every community has a Bill McKelvey, and I guess this was the local Bill McKelvey, if those of you who remember Bill from around town. And we wrote more in the diary every day, and more postcards. It was kind of a unique symbol on the church. On the one hand, they almost had an American eagle on the right side, and on the left, it's difficult to see, but it's the German Iron Cross. And all of that, of course, is under the Christian cross, but it's kind of an interesting symbolism for a church. This congregation was against the intermediate nuclear force, and there's the ban, the INF symbol in their church window. Gerhardt was very nearsighted, but here he's helping us find our way, plotting our next tour. He is not going to be with us now. We are going to go into Berlin proper and then into East Berlin. This is the Church of Kaiser Wilhelm, famous cathedral. It was obviously bombed during the war, and they have chosen to leave it in its bombed-out state and built around it. Kind of a grotesque symbol of the violence that World War II brought. The interior, they have a cross there, a cross made of 2 nails. One nail is from this church, and another nail is from the German bombings that took place in England. Again, a kind of a powerful symbol of inhumanity to man's inhumanity to man. The youth group out there against the walls of the church. The new church that they have built right next to the cathedral, is the interior here. We went then by bus to East Berlin. Now it's very hot. Doug and I decided, we left everybody at the Brandenburg Gate, and Doug and I, being the good people that we are, decided to go and change money. Now if you ever wonder why the East German economy is as bad as it is, this is really why. Not because of Doug, I mean. Doug's on his knees praying that they'll have enough money. He's looking for money. He's looking for his traveler's checks. Here we are standing in line with 2 American girls from California. But that is the bank in East Berlin for cashing all foreign currency. And it's not really a massive structure, as you can see, and there are only 3 windows, and 2 of them are usually closed, so we were there for a very long time, much to the group's consternation. This is the Reichstag, the German Parliament building, again, right near the Brandenburg Gate. The Brandenburg Gate is being refurbished. It's over there underneath all of those scaffoldings. And in front there, all that sandy structure that you see is, again, places where the wall was and is no more. There's the Brandenburg Gate. Of course, from World War II, you remember Hitler having many of his main political events and rallies right here. This street that this Brandenburg Gate is the Unter den Linden Street. We found our East German marks. We bought the kids some food. They were getting quite upset with us, with Doug and me at this point, because we had not shown up. They chawed down. Rested a little bit in the park. And then we walked the entire length of Unter den Linden, which was a nice walk, but a very hot one, down to a square where the radio tower, which we could climb, was. Marx and Engels, I suppose their statues are in somewhat disrepute these days, but they were still standing and seated there when we were there. Again, as I said, this was really a hot, hot day, and they had a fountain, which was one of the highlights of the trip, I suppose, next to tearing down the wall. Chance to play in the fountain and enjoy. Stace, it's a nice picture. The group. And on the other side of the group is the well-dressed camera person holding all of the camera. I'm not even from Japan. Holding all the cameras, taking all the pictures. To go up into the radio tower, you had to check all your packs and all your cameras and things. We paid for one extra one. The elevator man here looked a lot like Mike Martin. Took us right up. And there they are. Looking out of the tower onto East Berlin. Doug was a little more sophisticated. East Berlin, by choice, did not repair a lot of, not by choice, did not repair a lot of the damage. I mean, they just haven't had the money to do it. So you still see a lot of the destruction from the bombings of World War II. This was an optimist. This is, again, a hot, hot day, and this guy's got skis and ski poles. I don't know what he's doing with them, but he's a real optimist. Warm Pepsi was the order of the day. The kids got used to drinking, we all got used to drinking warm Pepsi and being thankful that we had something to drink. Again, canals, the rivers of East Berlin. This is on the way to the Pergamon Museum, which is a very famous one. Everybody else got in. I waited outside because I made dinner reservations, and they closed the museum by the time I got there. The hanging gardens of Babylon are in here. Again, they're world famous. This is Judge Mills. It's going to be his election poster. Mills is on the right, you know. All right. And there we are. See, anybody can do it, Doug, but not as well. Berlin Cathedral. Again, mirrored. Marcia looked to the other side, the artist in her. She looked to the other side and said, look, it's mirrored in that modern building, which I suppose was why it was built that way. We tried to feed the kids well. We ate in many a Ratskeller, and that we are toasting here with Vichy water. Vichy water, yes. Right. Marcia, we were running out of money, and Marcia was the only one able to eat at this point. So it was her turn to eat.
You all get the watch.
That's all got the watch. There they are. This was chicken, yes. Chicken, French fries. They were having a garbage strike with the changeover, you know, from east to west and the unification of their currency, etc. People were getting a little concerned about what's going to happen to their benefits, etc. And the East Germans were now holding a first of their capitalistic garbage strikes. They were still picking up at hospitals and government buildings and any place else that was in crisis, so they had a little bit to learn. It says more work, less reward on the bumper sticker there. We grabbed the train, the East German train, the S-Bahn, the surface train, and headed back toward West Berlin. This is getting to be a very tired group. We came down, we had to catch the U-Bahn, the subway into West Berlin, and we heard jackhammers working, etc. And it was Jen Clark who said, they're tearing down the wall. And that's exactly what they were doing. We almost walked right past history if she hadn't said that. And here they are, literally chiseling down the wall that had separated east from west. And pieces would fall, and people would clap. So there was a little audience of spectators around taking pictures. They're writing cards to all of you again. I think Jennifer is leaving. She's had enough. More cards. And this is how they're mailed. Two people go to the post office and lick stamps and put them on, and then they stick them in a mailbox, just like back home. Don't go away. We had made a little misunderstanding between the European way of counting and the American way of counting. I thought we were there for 4 nights. Gerhardt was abiding by Ben Franklin's fish and visitors stink after 3 days, and he was right, I think. So we were out after 3 days, and we had to leave. And so Gerhardt wanted to find us a place. He's looking for a place for us to stay in Dresden. He did not have any luck doing it. We said our goodbyes. We didn't have any place to stay. We were due in Prague the next night. And so we had 1 night out on the road to try to find out where we were going to be. Had our group shot, a little overexposed, sorry about that. Gerhardt's in the center there with the shirt on. And just as we got ready to go, the kids threw a frisbee and it got caught up in the tree. You can see Matt's on the top of the car, but he's not tall enough. And so we sent up Coconut Man. Right. There goes Ross climbing the tree. Last time he did this was in Puerto Rico to get a coconut. And sure enough, he retrieved the frisbee and came back down safely. Then we went to a hardware store. Why would we go to a hardware store? To buy paint. And we took that paint to the wall, back to the wall at Potsdam. Now again, the children are spanning no man's land that used to be betwixt the two sections of the wall. I always thought it was just one wall myself. Here's Mountain Mike tearing down the wall. He's pulling this post off of there. It's crashing down. And there he is. Hey! He did get hurt, however. Here's his wife dutifully attending to his ankle that he caught on some steel, ruined a good pair of socks. Us and Mike, again, more wall destruction, more activity. We found a nice blank spot and started to paint. I like the other pose better, Doug. And then after Friendship Tour was painted, we painted our names on the thing. Don't worry, we're not going through all the names, so don't have to panic. Everybody got a chance to paint on the wall, even the Rev. But then your hands get gooey, so you have to clean them off at the wall. There's our group shot. Yeah. More breaking up of the wall. Jamie went bonkers. She just went and took she liked that wall so much, she just took a picture of it. Look at that. Right. Some people snap under the strain of Junior. And Nick painted this picture of the world and the slogan, "All One People," which was very nice. Now, they're the kids with all their rocks, carrying them in their hands and their jackets and everywhere else. We headed out now toward Dresden. This sign on this truck says long vehicle, and it's got a Dachshund for a bumpster. Dresden is a very drab city. It was bombed by the Allies about, 3 months, I guess, before the war was over. More people were actually killed in Dresden than were killed in Hiroshima and Nagasaki with the nuclear bombing. Many refugees were in the city at the time that it was bombed. But it's just a very drab, desolate-looking place. We're off to dinner. You couldn't find dinner everywhere. And again, we're going to Ratskeller. Stephanie came zipping around the corner. She hit these papers, I don't know what they were, and fell right on her keister. And we ate. And they ate. It was very difficult to spend money in Eastern Europe. We would eat, it'd be $3, $4 for an entire dinner for the kids per person. I mean, it was just unheard of. That includes tip. Very difficult to spend money. We had, when we came out of Berlin, we had a transit visa, and it was good only to go across East Germany and into Czechoslovakia. Well, we had a couple of problems. One is we had about $1,500 worth of East German money, which the next day was going to turn worthless, and we needed to burn that up. And so I asked the guard at Berlin, I said, well, can we stay the night? Oh, no, you can't do that, but you can stop a couple of times. Well, as Judy and I drove out of town, we decided that on the eve of everything changing over, they're going to become NATO troops. We said, are they really going to put 26 Americans in jail? And we opted for the fact that they were not. So we found a campground in East Germany and stayed there, which I would guess might well make us probably the first American group to stay in East Germany illegally. Right. We had 2 tarps, so we erected some tarps for the kids to sleep under. Some people used Mike down at the picnic table there. They had a couple of them were covered and slept down there. Jen and I don't know who else is on the next table. This one's out of focus. It's not your eyes. Slept on a couple other tables. You wonder how we travel so cheaply. Yes, this is the Doug Mills laundry. Drying the clothes in the car, which is always kind of a cute thing to do. In the morning, Mike and I had gotten up kind of early, and there was a nice fog out there, and the kids were still asleep. It was quiet. Some were sleeping in the backs of the vans. We actually slept just wherever we could. The lake was very nice. This lake is, again, the pollution, the acid rain, and all the other things of Eastern Europe. This lake is dangerous for swimming or for anything else. So I guess you just use the boats and go out on it. Although, while we're having breakfast, there were 2 nude swimmers who went in. I guess it's safe if you swim in the nude. Mike and I got the kids up. They weren't from our group, by the way, the nude one. Yeah. Again, you ask how we travel so cheaply. Well, this was the bathroom, and Marcia's over there washing up. These are the refugee children asking for bread in the morning, and we're doling them out. We kind of went into this store and essentially just bought them out. You know, bread was like 2 cents a loaf. It was just incredibly cheap, which is, of course, part of the problem they're having with their economy. So we had bread, Dannon yogurt, and some banana drink, which was pretty gross. Even I thought it was gross. Yes. This man worked at the park, spoke some English, and was he wanted matchbooks for his son, but we didn't have any matches since everybody had given up smoking. By the way, when I had gone to register at the campsite, some other people, I noticed in the book that there were no Americans for at least 2 pages of the registry, and some campers who were there did say, "Gee, we don't see too many Americans here." And we said, "Yeah, we know why." But no, we didn't say that because we didn't want them to know we were there illegally. This is Moritzburg, a Saxon hunting castle just outside the campground. So again, trying to educate the children, we took them there to see it. It looks like it's 3-dimensional, but Stacy said, no, that's 1-dimensional. That paint is just on there to look like it's 3-dimensional. This was a hall with strange, grotesque-looking antlers of different animals. One of the fancier rooms. They still do, you still see, again, the East German economy, you still see, farming by horses. So there are very, 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 very poor economy. We then went to Meissen. Meissen is an ancient city not too far from Dresden. It's known for its porcelain. That's the Meissen Cathedral up there, which is something like 1,000 years old. It's very hard to take vans into these areas, especially without maps, because you might wind up on a dead-end street, and then you've got 3 vans to back up and get out of there, which is exactly what happened to us here. These streets were not planned for modern transportation. Pepsi-Cola, even if it's warm, is better than nothing. There they are. We went up to the cathedral, which overlooked the Elbe River. Inside the cathedral is this porcelain crucifix, of course, the Catholic cathedral, of Jesus, and on the bottom of it there, it's overexposed, but are a whole pile of human bones, skulls and things, kind of grotesque. The cathedral itself is quite magnificent. Then it was back to the town square of Meissen. Lunch actually, at the Ratskeller. Again, trying to burn through that East German money. Jamie and Doug bought some lace, which we have for the communion table here at the church. We bought some T-shirts that said Freedom 1990, which are someday going to be very historic T-shirts. Kids ate ice cream the entire time. I continually advised them against it, but they kept eating it, and very happily, nobody got sick. In order to burn more East German marks, we bought more cases of Pepsi-Cola to take with us on our trip to Prague. East Germans, a lot of Europeans have this, of course, but the East Germans have these little gardens, these little sheds. People come home from work, they go out and tend their garden, and maybe they have a hammock or a bed in the shed, and they can take a little nap in there. Everything was very clean in East Germany. We were surprised, at least I was surprised at that. They did not have any rest stops in Hojos, so this was the rest stop in the Hojos as we crossed the mountains heading toward the Czech border. Czech border coming up. I told the kids that I thought the worst thing that would happen is that the guards would yell at me for violating the terms of the transit visa, but we went through without a hitch. It was almost a disappointment. I figured that things were changing so fast that the left hand wouldn't know what the right hand was doing anyway. As soon as we crossed into Czechoslovakia, you could see a lot of pollution, and here was just slash cutting. Whole side of trees, just mountainside, just completely cut down. A lot of erosion and things. Also some little tree-lined streets, highways that we traveled on. We're heading toward Salani, which is, as it sounds, Salani. You ask how we travel so cheaply. This is the Grand L in Salani. For those of you who, try to get my sympathy once in a while, this is where we spent our 23rd wedding anniversary. So you get no sympathy from me. Judy made the room assignments. Actually, it was very clean by standards. No bugs, at least we didn't find any. This is the bridal suite. And the bridal laundry. We told the kids to wear kinds of clothing that they could wash in the sink and hang out and have ready for the next morning. This was a morning ritual. Again, you ask how we travel so cheaply. Well, this was the bathroom. Yes. And there's Matt. The hose got away from you. You climb into this tub, see, and kind of sit. Well, you don't sit. You kind of kneel with as little of your body touching anything as possible. And you try to hold this hose so that it sprays the appropriate part. The problem is if it gets away from you, it sprays the entire room like a snake, including your dry clothing. Breakfast in the Salani was ham, cucumbers, tomatoes, tea, bread, cheese, right? Yeah. Tang. Tang as well, all right. And coffee grounds for those who like to eat them. And lots of Pepsi-Cola. Kids could drink all the Pepsi they wanted. Prague is, for my money, one of the most beautiful European cities that I've ever seen. Again, it's very old, certainly not laid out for car traffic. This is the oldest, what is it, Judy?
The oldest holograph.
A holograph, whatever that is. But anyway, at a appointed hour, the disciples appear up in those two little windows, and you can see on the lower down by the clock, there's a skeleton and somebody else over here on the other side, and they're kind of there doing their thing. This was the, I guess it was the tower of the city hall, and then you look out over Prague. Prague Castle is way off in the background there. It's just a beautiful, beautiful city. This is the Adam and Eve Church?
Dean Street Church.
What is it?
Dean Street Church. The towers are called Adam and Eve.
Oh, towers are called Adam and Eve, and one is larger than the other. That's the Eve one is, I'm sure. A lot of churches. Very photogenic city. The changing of the guard up at the Prague Castle. And of course the kids love to torment the guards.
That's funny.
Poor guy.
Same guy.
It's the same guy. He should have had battle pay, you know.
America just would have whooped him.
That's right. Within the walls of the Prague Castle, the ancient, the old burghers, the street, you know, the business people had their shops. I mean, it looks like something out of Alice in Wonderland or Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs or something, but these were all little shops in the castle walls. Still operative, by the way. We had dinner in the castle walls. This was, again, Judy's and my anniversary dinner. Wendy bought us a plate. We didn't eat off of it. We hung it up. Everywhere in a lot of European countries, of course, but in East Germany, they seem to have, and in Czechoslovakia, they have a lot of bathroom people, you know, to make sure that you're attended to, but they don't. They just collect money. This one was a friendly one. Some of them were very unfriendly. The gargoyles at the Prague Cathedral. Awesome looking creatures. Prague Cathedral, again, a magnificent building. Just wonder how the ancients, medieval people built these things. They're doing some refurbishing on the building. They have scaffolding up. This is how we kind of plot our tours. We have a general idea where we want to go, but then on a day-to-day basis, we go where the action is. Try to figure out where we might want to show up. Evening, the Prague, again, the Prague Castle in the background there. This particular bridge over the river is one where artisans and theatrical people and things would go up in the evening and sell their wares. It was a walking bridge, not a driving bridge. And here were two medieval knights, one kissing the hand of Judy over here on the right, and I guess the other one kissing Caitlin's hand. And then they had a mock battle, a fight with swords and things. One of them was vanquished, and so ended the story. And then, of course, they tried to collect some money. Kids buying souvenirs. Ross and Jamie saw this picture of Kristen. Actually, it wasn't Kristen, but it was a girl who certainly looked just like her, and so they bought it and gave it to Kristen. We never did find out what happened to the guy there who's selling the painting. Now the question is, are these young men watching mud wrestling? No, they're watching a chamber orchestra. I couldn't believe it when I saw that, but I was very pleased. There is hope for American youth. We tried to go to church, to the Catholic Church on Sunday, but we missed the morning Mass. But there we are, sitting, waiting for the Mass to begin. Again, the interior of the Prague Cathedral, which is in the castle area. Gorgeous. We heard the organ playing, very dramatic. From then we went to the Jewish Museum. The Jewish Museum was going to be used by the Nazis as a memorial to an extinct people after they finished the grand plan for their eradication. This is the Jewish cemetery. Again, stone upon stone, crowded together. This is where we met, I'm trying to think, what's her name? Right. Elsa Reiner. And the name didn't click with us until she happened to show a picture. And this is Carl Reiner's sister-in-law, the Meathead's aunt from All in the Family. She had just been through many years of psychotherapy, and this was the completion of her therapeutic, kind of bringing closure to her experience as a child when she was orphaned and taken to Dachau prison camp. And Mike had overheard her talking in the museum, and I went up and asked her if she would come down and talk with our kids a little bit about her experiences. After we took her to her hotel, we went to a swimming pool so the kids could get at least a little bit cooled off. And they did. The next day, we went back to the Christian Peace Conference, and this professor of theology talked to us a little bit about the history of Czechoslovakia. The kids were really polite, and they didn't fall asleep, and I really appreciated that. And then we took our traditional group shot and gave him a shirt, one of the shirts designed by Marcia. Mail call. We had mail sent to a couple of places, and the Christian Peace Fellowship was one of them. It's always important for the kids to get mail. Then we met in the square, passed out some money. They've been having some robberies and things. Ever since the East has gotten a little freer and a little more capitalistic, robberies have gone up. So we were trying to be very circumspect in how we gave out money to kids, and we sent them off shopping. There's some tired shoppers. Feet are getting heavy. Eating ice cream.
Hot dog. Those are hot dogs.
Or a hot dog, whatever. One of those things that comes in a bun. This is Stacy stealing a poster off the wall. Ross with a purchase. Kristen with a purchase for our anniversary. And Mike, ever the romantic, stopped to buy roses for the women. Our women, that is, the three that were with us. Not for all the women in Prague. So, Lord knows we had enough money to do it, you know. This is the Green Frog restaurant. The Green Frog is very, very old, and the local executioner, back when they had hangings, I guess, this is where he dined. We never found out whether it was before or after he did the deed. Again, it was just kind of a nifty place to take the kids to eat, and it was nice that we could, you know, you can afford to do that over there. Doug's putting it on his American Express. You notice the candle over here, this tall bottle with many years of wax pouring out of it. One of the nice experiences, this is a little out of focus, one of the nice experiences, the girl on the right was our waitress, the man in the background there with the mustache, none of these spoke any English at all, just, I mean, very, very little. He was the bartender, and they loved our shirts. And so when we came in and we were tired, so they gave us some of their beer, and they wanted our shirts. And so, I mean, they were very polite. So we gave them shirts from the trip, and they were ecstatic about having their very own shirts. This one is not full, so don't panic. From there we went to, give me that name again, what is it?
Chesky Budajovitz.
Yeah, Chesky Budajovitz. This is Budweiserville. 300 years ago, the Budweiser people came from this town to America and made their millions. We stayed at the Hotel Zavon. We were prepared to camp, but Jamie prevailed upon us. No, we wanted to keep everybody, well, actually, we had extra money that we wanted to burn, and so we spent the night there. The maitre d' here, again, very helpful people. We needed lunch. It wasn't the noon hour. He was jammed up. He called around, tried to find places for us to eat. We couldn't find any. He said, I'll open up our banquet hall here. So he opened up the banquet hall for us and served us lunch. And at the end of lunch, again, we had, you know, a lot of money to burn through, so Doug and I decided we gave him like a $20 tip, which was no big deal for a group of 26. And when he saw that $500 bill sitting on his table for him, he immediately thought we had made a mistake, and he didn't want to take it because he thought it was too much. Again, the people are a very low standard of living for a lot of these people. We then went to Chesky Krumholz. Boy, never make it in Czechoslovakian language. This is an ancient, again, a 16th century town that is still working. Kids are still walking the streets, the shops are still there, and they're still living in the ancient part of the city. Really kind of nifty. Again, very picturesque. This was maybe about 20 or 30 miles from Budweiserville, the cathedral at this ancient town. They fixed lunch for us, dinner I should say. We went up to one of the suites. Had we adults known that there were nice suites in this hotel, we would have taken them for ourselves. But when we were assigning rooms, we didn't. So the kids got some good rooms, Doug got a good room, and some of us slept in closets, but that was all right. So here they are with their TV watching World Cup soccer. And then we headed from Czechoslovakia into Austria. It was the shortest way to get to Munich. We stopped at the Water Palace in Salzburg. We had been to Salzburg on a trip in 1985 with this youth group, with a different youth group from this church. The Water Palace was the home of a bishop who had a sense of humor. And this particular table, he would bring his guests to, and they would all sit. And they would cool the wine, etc., in the center of the table in the running water. And then when his guests got a little too drunk, he would signal to his steward, who would turn the water on. And water would spray up through all the seats onto his guests. But the rule was, of course, that they could not stand until the bishop stood. There was no water, however, squirting out of the bishop's chair, so he was perfectly happy to sit.
That's Doug.
That's Doug, yes. The kids really got wet. Here, two of them changing, Kristen and Sam, changing beside the car, very quickly and surreptitiously. You ask how we travel so cheap. We make lunch in the car. Pardon me, do you have any Grey Poupon? We are now in Munich. Stopped for pizza, because the kids are getting hungry. The Martins very thoughtfully this is the 4th of July, and we had not celebrated our own Independence Day. They had thoughtfully gotten some sparklers for the kids. So we had a little sparkle party out in the front door of the church. People trying to pretty up. That's Karen underneath the turban there. It's a morning shot. The kids, the youth group from this particular church travels to England, so they have had some foreign experience and do speak English quite well. They had a lot of dancing going on, so our kids were dancing with them. We slept on the floor of this church. I must admit, floors are not getting any softer as the years go by. We ate our own breakfast. Again, we're able to buy in regular grocery stores now. We also have to do that because things are much more expensive in West Germany. The passing out of the money, we give the kids spending money, and then certain chaperones had charge of certain kids' money, and they would, keep track of it for the trip. One of the more, heavier experiences was our trip to Dachau, the first prison camp that I preached on this morning. The Arbeit macht frei means work makes you free, which is kind of an ironic thing to have at this prison camp. Right now, most of the barracks are torn down, but those are the foundations where the barracks were that housed the prisoners. Jews, communists, clergy, gypsies, anybody that was thought to be against the government was very often interred in concentration camps. It was not just for Jews. This was a gas chamber. It was never used at Dachau. They have redone some of the old barracks, and this is a recreation of how people slept back then. Toilets, quite a dehumanized. This was one of the crematories, the flowers at the crematories. This was the wall where people were shot, and the red flowers in this garden walkway symbolized the blood. Mass grave. These were the trees. This is what the old rabbi, this was not on the plan, but the old rabbi told us that these were the trees from which people were hung during that period of time. And there's the old rabbi that I preached on this morning, who said, "Ich glaube nicht," I do not believe. Throughout Germany, you see that the slogan, "Never again." There's a real preoccupation with what happened during the Holocaust. A very stark monument to the people who died. Again, the rhythm of the trip then picked up. We came back into town, into Munich. This was we only had a half a day in Munich. This is an ancient, again, one of these ancient towers that does something, and they have moving figures that come out. We waited a long time to see this, and I guess it was what it was supposed to be, but the kids didn't think it was all that much. It was kind of a little disappointing. They did some shopping, but things were very expensive. They're sitting there resting. We took them then to dinner at the Hofbrauhaus. We essentially followed, in many ways, Hitler's path, though not in the order of his path to become the Führer. This was the restaurant where he gave his first major political speech. They had an Oompa band. Again, it's a very large space. She's carrying 5 of those. They are very, very heavy. And my camera wasn't working. That's why she's grimacing like that. This is not Vichy water, I will admit that. It's apple cider with a head. Judy brought pretzels for the kids. We also bought them chicken and things, but some of the large Bavarian pretzels. The transportation system over there is all done basically on the honor method. You buy your ticket, you punch your ticket, and you ride. We found the same thing in Austria when we were there. A system like that would not work very well in the United States, but it seems to work pretty well there. On the way home, waiting for the bus. Now what's going on there? We met an old Arab, Sheikh Abdul. Very holy man. This is Karen. You can't really see it. Karen has got gum in her teeth to change her visage. We tried to give the kids decent breakfast. We tried to give them decent meals throughout, really. And then we headed toward Fusen. I had always wanted to see Fusen. This is that every time you see a castle that looks like Disneyland, it's Fusen, and it's not that old. It's only 150 or so years old, but we went there. It's in the Bavarian Alps. We had lunch. It was quite cold here. And then we headed up into the Alps. By cable car. This is also a ski area. I would not want to ski there. It was really very, very steep and foreboding. We were down below here. Some of the kids, they were going to be back in 45 minutes, and they took off climbing. And these are the things where parents, you know, we all are better off not knowing until after the fact. The kids climbed up to where that cross was, and only on the way back down did they see the sign that said, "Expert climbers only." Everywhere Kristen is, she does a traditional headstand in the Alps. This is once in Salzburg and now at Fusen. That's one of the more intelligent pictures that you will see of me. Appreciate that for what it is. You know, coming back down, Jamie bought a red Bavarian hat. And there is the Fusen Castle. King Ludwig, who was kind of mad, built the thing. He had a number of these, I guess 3 of them throughout the country. He was eventually taken away and put in some place. This was one of the views from the castle. It was also the view from the men's room. Actually, I'll be very honest, actually it was the urinal on the men's room. I've never seen that kind of a view before in that kind of a place. But it kind of makes you want to go back and go again, you know? We had our group photo, and I wanted to do a communion with the kids in the Alps, and so we had our traditional closing communion service here at the Fusen, at the castle, Königsberg. Then it was back to the church where, his name, Otto Kietzig was the minister. This is also a Lutheran church. All of these churches are Lutheran. We went to their coffee house to meet with their children, and we had dinner there. That's Otto in the suit on the left. And then the kids slam danced and had a grand old time with their youth group. And there's Nick, Wild Man Nick. They exchanged shirts. You can see the kids, the sweat. I mean, this was a very energetic group. The next morning, we began to pack up. We were going to go to Frankfurt, but we wanted to be ready to get on the airplane and head home. So Marcia's packing us up. We had a little neighborhood problem there. This man he didn't speak any English. He's an old Nazi. The kids would throw the frisbee in the churchyard, and it would go into his yard. And then, of course, our kids, being sensitive, would climb over his fence through his garden to get the frisbee. And this, understandably, began to tick the old man off. He chewed the ear off the assistant minister for a while, so we figured we better go and try to make peace with him before we left. And so we brought him a shirt of the trip as a kind of a apology for all the trouble we'd caused them. He just turned out to be a lonely old man, very delightful. His wife is crippled with arthritis. This is 10 o'clock in the morning. He insisted that we come into his yard. He showed us his flowers, his garden. He set up a table and he served us warm German beer. Now, I don't mean just us. I mean all of us that are sitting here, including Zach. So the kids, of course, are saying, you know, what do we do with this stuff? You know? And so I said, wait till he goes back in the house and you dump it in the flowers. So that's what they did with it. But of course, I kind of braved it out and drank with him a little bit. But it was, anyway, he was very delighted that we came. And it's one of those situations where you have to accept their hospitality or they would be grossly insulted. We said our goodbyes at the church and headed out on the road toward the Olympic Stadium. This is the site of the Munich Olympics. You will recall, we're trying to think, was that in the 70s when the Israeli athletes were murdered by the Palestinian terrorists? Mike and Marcia, of course, had to have a race, and Mike handily won. We had lunch in the parking lot, which is beginning to grow over with grass, and headed out for Frankfurt. As I said, the other picture was more intelligent looking. They get less intelligent looking toward the end of the trip. Andy Waltz, our own Andy Waltz, is over there in the Army right now. In fact, his mom said he just made private first class, right, Jan? And so he met us at the youth hostel, and we took him and his buddy to dinner at, of course, McDonald's. And then Andy, we had an extra place, so Andy spent the night with us, and he took us on a tour to an ancient part of Frankfurt, which they're excavating, and this was one of the gargoyles that was there. Next morning, headed to the airport, unloaded all our gear. Again, the security people wanted us to get our cars out of there yesterday. We checked the cars in, surrounded all of our luggage and purchases, because this is the time when you begin to let down. It's the end of the trip, nothing's been lost or stolen, and you figure you're home free, but that's precisely the time when something gets lost or stolen. So we drove that into the kids' heads and made them surround our gepäckas again so that nothing would get taken. Checking through air security, that's Ross. There's the ticket collector, collecting all the tickets so that all of us could get our frequent flyers and the kids wouldn't lose their tickets and lose that particular advantage. The flight home was relatively uneventful. I know this picture is being taken. I'm just being cool here, you see. Or waiting for the restroom. Everybody's got to meet somebody, right? So back at Pittsburgh, Mike's parents were heading up to their cabin on Lake Erie or Huron or whatever, and they came in to meet us on our pass-through. We waited at the airport, of course, boarded the plane and landed in Albany. The Gustafson family. And there is the entire group all together home safely.